Yo, 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 what is up, YouTube? BK Brad Kellner. Today is Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. Hope everyone had a great holiday weekend. We're talking all things Texas on today's video. We'll get into some Texas basketball conversation. We'll talk a little Texas baseball as well before we wrap up today's video. But we're going to open up talking Longhorn football. Today is the first day of winter workouts over on the 40 acres. So it feels like a good time to talk some Texas football. I don't think there's ever a bad time to talk some Texas football. So some current events, some happenings with the Longhorns. We'll talk about that. Some potential happenings with Steve Sarkisian's team. And once again, we'll get to some basketball and baseball before we get out of here later today. Please like this video if you haven't yet. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so. And tap that notification bell so you're always informed whenever I release new content. So some news that dropped over the weekend. Texas picked up a transfer tight end, Jahleel Billingsley from Alabama, coming to Austin. The Longhorns in serious need of some tight end help in terms of depth, in terms of experience, in terms of talent. Not a lot there in the tight end room. Texas lost its two top tight ends from this past season. Jared Wiley transferred to TCU. Cade Brewer is done. His eligibility is over, so he is moving on from the University of Texas. So those were your two top tight ends from last season. Those were really your only two contributing tight ends in 2021. So Texas clearly needed some help there, and they get some from Jahleel Billingsley, who obviously has a relationship with Steve Sarkisian during Sark's time at Alabama. Before the Billingsley addition, he looked at the rest of Texas's roster. He looked at the tight end room. The Longhorns had four guys: Juan Davis, Jatavion Sanders, Gunnar Helm, and Braden Lybrock. Those were the four tight ends that Texas had. Only one of those guys had a catch last season. That was Juan Davis. That one catch went for 0 yards. So, yeah, that's the returning production you had in the tight end room before adding Jahleel Billingsley. And I guess he doesn't count as returning production, but he's at least done some things in his college career that leads you to believe that he's got a chance to contribute early and often when he gets to Austin. So Billingsley, a highly touted recruit that probably goes without saying, considering he got a scholarship offer from Alabama. In 2020, with Steve Sarkisian running the offense at Bama, 18 catches, 287 yards, and 3 touchdowns for Billingsley. So not gaudy numbers, not all-American numbers, not all-conference numbers, but more productive with Sark than any of the tight ends on this roster have ever been with Sark. He was a backup in 2020. He was a backup this past season as well. Didn't really see his role increase from 2020 to 2021, despite being another year older. 17 catches, 256 yards, and 3 touchdowns for Billingsley in a longer season in 2021. So relatively similar numbers. Actually, the numbers are a little bit weaker this past season than they were in 2020. So once again, we're not talking about an All-American player. He hasn't done too much, but he's done more than any of the current tight ends that Texas has on its roster right now. I brought up Braden Lybrock. He did not play at all. Was nursing an injury throughout the entirety of the 2021 season. So Billingsley will come in, and I think he's got a chance to compete for some playing time early and often. He's a decent blocker from what I've watched, from what I've heard from Alabama people. Once again, I gave you some stats from Billingsley as a pass catcher, so he has been decently effective as a receiving threat during his first couple of years at the college level. And now he is coming to Austin. So big year for the tight ends, man. Once again, you lose your two top guys from last year. There's an opportunity there for one or multiple of these dudes to step up. And Jeff Banks has his work cut out for him. I would love Jatavion Sanders to make a huge impact and to take a big step for this team. I was wrong on JT Sanders as a freshman. I thought as a true freshman, he would be able to contribute and make an impact at Texas. That did not happen. He barely saw the field in 2021. It was a pipe dream for me. He wasn't an early enrollee, so he didn't get the UT until the fall. And look, he was kind of starting a new position, right? He played both ways in high school, but more as a wide receiver than as a tight end during his high school days. So he had to learn the tight end position, obviously had to get up to speed and weight at the collegiate level, and it just was too quick of a turnaround for Jatavion Sanders, who was the 5-star recruit that Texas signed in the class of 2021. And that, of course, the transition class from Tom Herman to Steve Sarkisian. I was pumped about JT Sanders. Look, I'm still pretty excited about JT Sanders, but I think this year needs to be a big year for him, because if things don't click in 2022 for JT, in today's college football, I wouldn't be too surprised if he decided to enter the transfer portal. And I know there are some Texas fans who would love to see what JT Sanders can do on defense, right? He played both ways in high school. A lot of people thought he could play both ways in college too, but apparently he wants to play offense. So hopefully things can work out this year for JT Sanders on offense. Hopefully he can take that step and become that guy that I and so many others thought he would be. Once again, the highest rated recruit that Texas had last year, the 1 5-star that Texas picked up last year. Hopefully we could see a breakout season from Jatavion Sanders. Juan Davis, I mentioned it, 1 catch last year for 0 yards, did some good things in the spring game. Heard some good practice reports behind the scenes about him throughout last season as a true freshman. Probably not fair to expect too much out of him either. Same thing holds true with Gunnar Helm. So I don't really know the order for Texas tight ends as we get closer and closer to spring ball, right? Billingsley, I think, has a great chance to be the number 1 sort of tight end, but he's a guy who can also flex out and be an outside receiver for this team as well. So maybe he does that, and Davis or Helm or Lybrock or Sanders gets the opportunity to be the, quote unquote, tight end 1 for this football team going into 2022. Jeff Banks has talked about it. He says he's excited about the guys that he already has on campus. I assume, he's excited about Billingsley coming here too. I assume Sark is as well because of the relationship that those two guys have together. And hopefully Billingsley can make an impact, and hopefully Texas can get more production out of the tight end room this year. Like, I know the 2 guys from last year who were the most productive are gone, but like neither of those guys were all that good. So there's a chance that Texas gets better in that tight end room, and Texas needs to get better in that tight end room to have a more successful offense here in 2022. So there's the news. Billingsley is coming to Austin. You guys probably knew that by now, but wanted to throw in my 2 cents on that pickup. Feel free to comment below with your thoughts on Billingsley, your thoughts on the tight end room. What do you want to see? What do you expect to see from that group in 2022? Reading some insider sites, talking to some insiders behind the scenes, there's a chance that another Alabama guy will be transferring to Austin in the not too distant future. Linebacker Jalen Moody actually took a visit to Austin this past weekend. And look, Texas needs a lot of linebacker help. Outside of DeMarvion Obershone, not a lot of proven commodities in that room. Jalen Moody, maybe a Ben Davis 2.0, like not a guy who has great stats, not a guy who received significant playing time under Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa, only had 11 tackles last season, but there's some buzz around him. Alabama fans were actually a little bit upset that he entered the transfer portal. There were Bama fans who wanted to see more of Jalen Moody during his time in T-Town, but look, Bama's got 5-stars everywhere. They've got amazing linebacker play. It's tough to crack the rotation in Tuscaloosa. So hopefully there's something there for Jalen Moody, another one of those guys who was a very highly touted recruit coming out of high school. I think a class of 2018 kids. So been in college for a while, should have a fully developed body. And a guy who learned under Nick Saban for the last couple of seasons. So we'll see if it happens. Jalen Moody, no commitment yet. He hasn't announced that he's transferring to Texas, but good sign, obviously, that he took a visit this past weekend. And some of the folks that I've heard from behind the scenes feel like there's a good chance that Jalen Moody ends up in Austin. After the Longhorns missed out on Drew Sanders, the other Bama linebacker who was in the portal, he committed to Arkansas a couple of days ago. You would love to get Jalen Moody. I don't think he's the same player that Drew Sanders is, but that would be a decent get at a position of serious need for the Longhorns. So we'll keep following that story. Hopefully some good news coming the Longhorns' way in regards to Jalen Moody. Quick update. I'm sure a lot of you guys saw this, but if you didn't, here you go. Jordan Addison, the wide receiver from Pitt who won the Biletnikoff Award this past season as the best receiver in college football. There was some scuttlebutt that maybe he'd consider transferring to Texas because his wide receivers coach, Brendan Marion, is now the wide receivers coach at Texas, right? He left Pitt a couple of weeks ago to take the job at UT. Some thought that, okay, maybe Addison wanted to follow his wide receivers coach that helped make him the best receiver in college football in 2021. But in a recent interview Addison did with a Pitt insider site, he said he's staying. He said, quote, "I'm here at Pitt. It's where I'm staying at," end quote. So that dream is dead. At least it sounds like it's dead. Man, the potential of pairing Jordan Addison with Xavier Worthy would have been amazing. Plus Jordan Whittington, plus Bijan, plus Rojo, plus Keelan. I mean, those are some serious talented skill players right there. That would have helped Steve Sarkisian a lot if you were able to bring in a guy as good as Jordan Addison. That really would have made the wide receiver room look a lot more talented than it already is. But it appears that Addison is staying put in Pittsburgh. So that's still an area of need for me, for Texas. I'll do some research. I haven't heard any serious, legitimate wide receiver transfer candidates right now in regards to Texas. They missed out on a couple of guys who they would have liked to have gotten. But as of right now, I don't know if there's any big time impact transfer wide receivers that are on Texas's radar. Hopefully that changes, because you just don't have a lot there outside of Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington. It was a problem for this team in 2021, and might be a problem for this team in 2022 as well. And unfortunately, the Longhorns didn't do a great job recruiting-wise in the class of 2022. That's part of the reason why Brennan Marion is the new wide receivers coach and Andre Coleman is no longer here. The wide receiver play wasn't good enough last year, and also missed out on most of the best receivers in the state of Texas. So, yeah, there you go. We'll see what happens with the wide receiver position. It's an area of interest and an area of need for me. So there's some transfer portal news for Texas football as we sit here on January 18th. Once again, day one of winter workouts is today, so felt like a good reason to talk some Texas football. In future videos, we'll talk more Texas football, more portal updates if we have any, more recruiting updates as we get closer and closer to National Signing Day 2. And, of course, we're inching closer to spring ball, so there will be plenty more to talk about. Let's talk some Texas basketball, though, real quick. Recording this and posting this on Tuesday, January 18th. I feel like I've mentioned that a couple of times, and you guys probably already know what the date is. But the Longhorns take on K-State tonight at the Irwin Center. I think I'm going to post this video around 6:30 or 6:45. Tip off at 7:30, so maybe you're watching this after the fact. I won't spend too much time previewing this game. I will say the Longhorns are 10-point favorites as of right now. This is a game Texas should win. They went to Manhattan a couple of weeks ago and beat K-State. Actually, the only true road win of the year for the Longhorns to this point. That's something that has to change for Texas to compete in this Big 12. But this is a game they really need to win tonight if they want to stay in the mix for the Big 12 championship. It's probably too early to be talking about that type of stuff. But it would be nice for Texas to be in that conversation when the year is all said and done. Chris Beard hasn't shied away from it. The players haven't shied away from it. They want to win the conference this season. And you've got to take care of business against lower tier teams at home, especially if you want to be in that mix. Texas right now 3-2 in conference play. They're only half a game back. So as bad as the Longhorns have looked at times over these first 5 games in Big 12 play, they're very much in the mix. Now, it's once again very, very early. We've got a long way to go, but important for Texas to win tonight. Important for Texas to win these next 3 games. The Longhorns have 3 more conference games in the month of January. Their final game of the month is the Big 12 SEC Challenge against the GOAT, Rick Barnes, and Tennessee, who will be bringing his Volunteers to Austin, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. I think the 29th is the exact date on that. But 3 more conference games before the calendar turns to February. All 3 very winnable. Home against K-State, home against Oklahoma State, at TCU. I think Texas will likely be favored in all 3 of those games. Even though they lost at Oklahoma State a couple of weeks ago, my guess is the Longhorns, who are undefeated at home this year, will be favored at home against the Pokes. And then at TCU, I mentioned it earlier, Texas just 1 true road win this year. They're 1-4 away from the Irwin Center. That's got to change. And TCU is one of the worst teams in this league. There's no real bad team in this league, but TCU is one of the worst teams in this league. If you want to be in that conversation at the end of the regular season, you've got to win games like that. So I said that about the Oklahoma State game. Texas, unfortunately, couldn't get it done. Hopefully they get this one done in Fort Worth coming up midweek next week. Those are 3 very winnable conference games. Once again, Texas will be favored, I think, in all 3 of those games. Don't want to call them must win because it's still January, but when the calendar flips to February, you've got 2 games against Texas Tech. You've got another game against Iowa State. You've got 2 games against Baylor remaining. You've got 2 games against Kansas remaining. You've got a trip to Norman you've got to take as well. So you really want to take care of the softer part of this Big 12 schedule. It's a very backloaded schedule for the Longhorns. We've talked about that in previous videos. Get it done over these next 3 games. If you don't, you're going to be in some serious, serious trouble as the calendar flips to February. So the Longhorns rank number 23 right now. Hopefully they can go 2-0 this week. 2 very winnable games in Austin. Real quick Texas baseball nugget before we wrap things up. The D1 baseball preseason top 25 was released earlier today, and Texas, number one in the country. That's right, inching closer and closer to college baseball season. The Longhorns put together a pretty tremendous 2021 year. They made it all the way to the national semifinals in Omaha. Came up a little bit short of the ultimate goal, but we saw a lot of good things from David Pierce's squad in 2021, and the Longhorns losing some important pieces, but getting a lot of key figures back from that team that was just a couple of wins away from winning the College World Series. So tons of reasons to be excited about Texas baseball. We'll talk more. We'll preview more of the actual team and the actual season as we get closer and closer, but expectations always high for Longhorn baseball. No different in 2022. Might have said 2021 a minute ago. That's what they did last year. This is 2022. I'm still trying to figure this all out. 4 Big 12 teams ranked in the top 25. Oklahoma State ranked number 7. Texas Tech ranked number 14. TCU with the new head coach ranked number 17. So the Longhorns, I expect, will be the preseason favorites to win the Big 12 as well. That poll comes out in a few weeks. But Kendall Rogers and the D1 baseball crew pegging Texas as their number 1 team going into the college baseball season. So tip of the cap to David Pierce. I've got my Occupy Left Field hat. Shout out to Last Stand Hats, by the way. They are today's video sponsor. You've seen the discount code scrolling across the bottom of your screen. BK10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase from laststandhats.com. You can cop one of these bad boys as well. Shout out to the Occupy Left Field crew. Those good dudes. And I know they're pumped for the 2022 Longhorn baseball season. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I think I hit everything I wanted to hit. Please comment below if I missed anything. Your thoughts on Texas football, Texas basketball, Texas baseball, whatever's on your mind. Always love hearing from you guys. You guys are the reason I do these videos. You guys are the reason this channel exists. So appreciate the continued love and support. Please like this video if you can. Please subscribe to this channel if you like what you've heard. That's it. Until next time, y'all stay safe. Y'all stay healthy. And hook 'em.